Shalom, shalom. First off, I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kadesh, and shalom to my elders of GMS who told me this truth, and shalom to you brothers that scout throughout the four corners of the earth, preaching his gospel, preaching his word, risking your lives to do so. Shalom to you brothers. And yeah, I want to talk about something that's going on here in New Jersey, and it says the feds arrest two amid ICE clashes with protesters outside the Lanny Hall in Newark. That's over in Jersey, in the city of Newark, and they're at the Delaney Hall. I believe that's like a detention center being used to hold immigrants, undocumented immigrants, and basically they starting this shit up over here. You know, when they had that shit going on in Minnesota, now they're over here with it now. You know what I mean? So you have these protesters and these left wings going at these ICE agents, and they're, you know, hitting them with fucking, tear gas, all that shit, and just, trying to create a barrier, or whatever, for them, because they're saying, I'm gonna read the article. I don't want to say nothing that's untrue. It says the federal authorities arrest two people on late Tuesday outside the Lanny Hall Immigration Center in Newark, as another night of confrontations between federal immigration agents and demonstrators pushed the standoff into a sixth-day. Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin announced the arrest in the post on X, saying U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents had been assaulted by anti-ICE rioters who sprayed law enforcement with an unknown chemical substance. Videos from the scene showed a chaotic situation involving more than a dozen ICE agents during Tuesday's night confrontations. Multiple protesters and bystanders posted on social media that ICE deployed pepper spray. The day's events continued a pattern in which elected officials and media visit detention facility during the day before protests heat up during the evening hours. Mullin said two anti-ICE rioters were arrested on charges of assaulting, resisting, and impeding federal officers, and warned that anyone who assaults law enforcement will be persecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Organizers outside the Delaney Hall offered a sharply different account of at least one arrest. Though it was unclear whether it was one of those announced by Mullin. Kathy O'Leary, the New Jersey coordinator for the Catholic Social Justice Organization Pax Christi, said in a voicemail left for a Gothamist reporter around midnight that ICE agents had arrested a volunteer who was working as a street medic treating those hit by a pepper spray. O'Leary said the volunteer, whom she identified as a Bloomfield resident, was a U.S. Army veteran and a U.S. citizen. Okay, I don't want to read. We already get the point. Yeah, so these rioters, or those left wing people, whoever you want to call them, they just trying to point out the injustice of what's going on inside the prisons. From what I heard too, they were being fed bad food, rotted food, whatever. And like they said, some of the food had maggots in it and shit like that. You know what I mean? And it's like very, very poor conditions. They've been being put in very poor conditions. And so people are, once again, they're going at it with ICE and, blocking them from, entering, and blocking them from trying to come out, their vehicles. And, so it's the same shit, you know what I mean? Like what was going on in Minnesota. So, now are they going to, is this going to start civil unrest now? Is it going to, get worse as we, go on from here? You know what I mean? Or is it just, more distractions? You know what I mean? Because this all this is. What's the point? You understand? Like, I understand, the whole point of, human rights and shit like that, whatever. But what's really the point if you're not going to really turn up and you know what, and really, you know what I mean? And civil unrest and, and sedition amongst men, and, and them not regarding their kings and princes. Like, what is the point? You know what I mean? So it's like, but this is all the Lord's doing at the end of the day. You know what I mean? This is this is what the Lord wanted, and if nothing comes from this, this is still the Lord's will. You know what I mean? And maybe something else happens in another city or in another state, whatever. You know what I mean? You know what? You know, we watch as well as pray. You know what I mean? And we know we're patient. You know, we got to be patient and see what happens. You know, like the scriptures say, though it shall tarry, wait for it. You know, it shall surely come. You know what I mean? Roughly paraphrasing. You know, yeah, it's delaying right now. Things are really delaying right now as far as the civil unrest and Jacob's trouble. But we know it's going to happen. We just don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. But we know it's going to happen because it was prophesied. You know what I mean? It's in the scriptures. We prophesied this. We talked about this, you know. But we just don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to happen. You know, but we are watching. You know, we are watching. The prophets are watching. You know, and, you know, it's just... It's not. We know it's not going to get better. You know, this shit ain't going to get better. You know, and this, like I said, this is just another distraction from what's really going on. You know, and they're just going to use this as, you know, to be that, you know, that ploy to you know what I mean, to have everybody looking one way when everybody should have been looking the other way. And they're going to be doing some shit, you know, like they always do, the wicked. And you know, these elitists and, you know, and these people that's in these high, you know, that's in office and shit doing something. You know what I mean? They you know, that the people should be looking at, but they're not going to see it. You know, so let me bring out a couple of scriptures, and Lord willing, this be edifying. So let me get Salak. Salak. I'm trying to get it. Jacob's. Trouble. KJV. Jeremiah, okay. Jeremiah 30:7. At last, for that day is for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. That's talking about the elect. You know, the elect is going to be saved out of it. You know, we know there's a time of trouble to come. You know, a time of despair, a time of, you know, people are just scared. You know what I mean? Because everybody's flipping their shit and people are angry, and it's just going to be full anarchy out here in these streets, you know. But you know, the prophets, you know, the Lord, that, you know, the prophets, you know, the men that's doing the work, we're not going to fear, you know, because we knew this was going to come. We knew this was going to come when we prayed for this to come. You know what I mean? The sincere men prayed for this to come, because we all know that it's, you know what I mean, it's going to get real bad before it gets better. You know what I mean? And we all know that the only way for us to enter the kingdom is by, you know what I mean, by persecution, trouble, just everything going to hell. You know what I mean? Everything getting bad out here. You know what I mean? Persecution. You know, we all know that's going to happen. Times you know, of distress, you know. That's what's going to happen. That's what's coming. Anguish, you know. People are struggling, you know what I mean, out here, you know, trying to just to live. Put gas in the car, you know, fill up their tank, get groceries, pay their bills, you know. So people are vexed. People are angry. And all this is doing is just making shit worse. You know, the government coming down on us, and the people, you know, just bringing that pain and vexation, and people, after a while, people just gonna get tired of it, and they just gonna come against their kings and princes. Let me get that scripture. Coming against the they shall. Okay, I got it. It's a lot. I gotta call him back. I'm doing a video. Okay, Second Ezra 15 and 16. For there shall be sedition amongst men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. That's right. These people are not going to regard their kings nor princes. You know what I mean? It ain't going to be nothing that this these governors and mayors, that they, anything that they can do to, restore order and the people again. These people are just going to wild the fuck out and be angry and just tearing up shit, burning up shit, They ain't going to be able to store no order no more. And after a while, there ain't going to be no law and order to keep the people in line. Because it's going to come to the point where it's going to be a fucking free fall. You know what I mean? Like it showed in the movie Purge. All crime and all, manner of wickedness is going to become legal. So, yeah, this is it, man. This is, I pray that this shit gets worse. I'm sick of this fucking place. I'm praying that this shit gets worse, And this, this whole thing that's going on at that at the Delaney Hall, just, what I mean, would be the start of, be the beginning of our salvation and things to come, you know what I mean? But, that's it. That's all I had on that. Lord willing, this be edifying. Until next time, this is the brother Ahmad Yala from the Men of Valor Camp. Until next time, Shalom.